Hi everyone, welcome to our session. I am Nicole Van Trexler. I am the Associate Director of Data Science and Research at Wharton Customer Analytics.
Hey everybody, my name is Michael Frazone. I'm a doctoral student at the University of Pennsylvania and a research assistant at Wharton Customer Analytics.
And I'm Brandon Krakowski. I'm the Research and Education Director at Wharton Customer Analytics. I'm also a lecturer at Penn Engineering. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this AECT presentation, The Impacts of an Experiential Learning Pathway. This research is funded by Analytics at Wharton and is supported by Wharton Customer Analytics. The principal investigators are Raghu Iyengar and Nicole Wang Trexler. And the supporting team members are Michael Frazone, Brandon Krakowski, and Mary Perk. For today's agenda, we'll start by providing a bit of background about WCA and the experiential learning pathway. Then we'll lay out the theoretical framework, identify the research questions, and detail the applied research methods. Finally, we'll encapsulate the preliminary findings, discuss next steps, and open it up for questions. WCA is at the intersection of academics and industry. So what does this mean? Through our research and experiential learning programs, we work with companies for a variety of reasons: to transform their business thinking and analytics culture, to synthesize and translate research findings, to engage and work with students to deliver business value, and to demystify applications of machine learning and AI. Here are the different ways we collaborate. We engage with corporate partners to develop business value, thought partnership, and to source talent. We work directly with Wharton and Penn students by providing experiential learning programs, technical workshops, and mentorship. We engage with academic researchers by providing access to real-world data sets, research projects, and opportunities for publication. And we provide lifelong learning and professional development opportunities to industry professionals through mentorship and networking opportunities. We partner with a variety of companies across industries to develop and curate experiential learning for students. We believe that you learn analytics by doing analytics. So we've coined the phrase and firmly believe in learning by doing. Our short-term datathons allow multiple teams of Wharton and Penn students to compete in a real-world database exercise for a corporate partner. The benefits include a set of diverse and implementable solutions to inspire innovation and out-of-the-box thinking for the company, and to recruit top talent among Wharton and Penn students. Our longer-term analytics accelerator allows a highly curated team of Wharton and Penn students to work directly with a company on a 6 to 8 week data and analytics project. The benefits include high-touch engagement with students to produce deep knowledge, curated insights and solutions, and again, to recruit top talent among Wharton and Penn students. WCA also provides access to online self-paced learning modules. These are free and help students develop their data analytics skill set. They include, but are not limited to, Spark and Big Data, Intro to Data Viz, Intro to Python, and Intro to SQL. Finally, for completing one of our experiential learning programs and our online modules, students receive an experiential learning pathway credential. Here in this example, you can see that I've completed Intro to SQL, Intro to Data Viz, and the Analytics Accelerator. And now I'll pass it back to Nicole.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon, for the introduction part. Now we are going to talk about the research component. So the theoretical framework that we have used for this research consists of 3 components. One is on the experiential learning part. As we all know that the concept of experiential learning is actually have dated back 400 BC. And nowadays, it has been materialized by John Dewey with his Experience and Education back in 1938. And then it got further developed by Cope with his experiential learning cycle in 1984 and 2005. Another component is about digital badge or digital credential. I think we're all very familiar with the Boy Scout and with all of the credentials. So a digital credential is very similar to that concept with a goal to promote the achievement performance. So a lot of studies have been done to prove the effectiveness of a digital credential And of course, business education has also been adopted for a very long time, especially when it comes to motivating students with an external factor. Another concept we want to talk about is the diversity and inclusion. Studies have shown that only 14% of a female student have actually been enrolled in a computer science or a STEM program, while at the same time, less than 18% of a student who has an ethnic background have been enrolled in data analytics. Considering all the problems in mind, the research question that we are trying to resolve is that the first is what are the specific dimensions on what student can benefiting for participating in an experiential learning pathway. What Brennan has described earlier, an experiential learning pathway consists of a student who complete an analytics accelerator as well as an technical-oriented online module. Another question we are trying to resolve is that how does an experiential learning pathway better help students to apply the knowledge into practice? And another component is how does an experiential learning pathway better support students to provide them with the future employment opportunities? And lastly, how can the pathway help students with diversity and inclusion? With those questions in mind, we are adopting a quasi-experimental study framework. So specifically, the control group are the students who are in an undergraduate and graduate level who are in a data analytics related major, minor, or a program. And for an experimental group are the students who are participating in the analytics accelerator program. In terms of the participants, we have two cohorts. For the cohort in the fall semester, we currently have 25 students in the experiment group and 86 students in the control group. And for the student in the spring semester, we are going to recruit students, this time with the goal to have 25 students in the experiment group and at least 100 students in the control group. When it comes to what are the measuring part, it's going to be a mixed method with quantitative and qualitative. When it comes to the quantitative component, it's going to be a pre-survey and a post-survey. So the survey will consist of the experiential learning instrument adopted by a previous study and a self-evaluation of the skill set that consists of the hard skill and soft skill. We are also asking them for their academic performance related questions and their demographical background. We have collected the pre-survey, and for the post-survey, we will be doing that after they complete the experiential learning pathway. For the qualitative part, it will be a semi-structured interview at the end after they complete the pathway. And in terms of the data analysis, it's going to be a propensity score matching with a specific random forest method. The reason why we are using a propensity score matching is because we are trying to create two groups that can actually match up a very similar background in terms of their skills, their performance, and their demographics. So we can think it in this way. If the two groups are not very similar in a lot of the characteristics, then the results will be biased. And why would we use a random forest? It's because there are so many variables, and the random forest is the best technique so far that can actually capture everything. And now I'm going to turn it into Michael.
Thank you, Nicole. So yeah, we're going to talk about the preliminary findings now. Okay, next slide. Yep, thank you. So in terms of the preliminary findings, in terms of the demographics of the full 86 control students and 25 in the experiential learning program, they're similar on several different factors. They have similar ages. On average, they're about 22 years old. Similar ethnic backgrounds in terms of majority of them, about 3/4 are Asian, from Asian backgrounds. Similar GPAs, 3.8s, 3.9s. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of where the similarities are. There are some differences, however, that are important. Probably most notably on that second line, gender demographics. Only about 1/4 of the experiential learning program is female, whereas nearly 2/3 of the control group are female. So we got a lot more females in the control group. The control group tended to be a bit more likely to be in graduate programs, whereas the experiential learning program tended to be more from undergrads, but it's not too far off, but that seems to be the tendencies. And there were, the control group was more likely to be from the United States, whereas the experiential learning program was more likely to be from China, but again, not too far off. Experiential learning program tended to be in their sophomore year. Control group tended to be in their freshman year. So those are sort of the key demographic differences here between these groups. Okay, so in terms of hard skills, to capture hard skills, we asked a series of questions to both groups of students in terms of what their sort of background was in a plethora of data analytic related areas as well. So things like, do you have experience ever creating code, using big data tools, using statistic related equipment, but also key things like data analytics projects, processing, managing data, feature engineering, machine learning models, these kind of things. And what's very evident, those in the experiential learning program tended to be more experienced at the start. Generally speaking, with the exception of experiences with statistical related software pack, their low is a 76% on big data tools. Everything else, 4 out of 5, or at least 20 students from the experiential learning program had experience in those areas. Whereas if you look at the control group, there are many areas where a lot of these students don't have experience. Most notably was feature engineering to me, where only 1/3 of the control group actually has experience creating features. So there's a notable difference in that. Interesting note is that the control group more likely to have experience with some statistical software, such as SAS or Stata. But beyond that, they tended to be less experienced overall. Okay, so for soft skills, rather than looking at hard experience, we measured confidence that students felt that they had on a plethora of items for each area. So the primary areas we looked at was students' time management skills, teamwork skills, presentation skills, communication skills, and problem-solving ability. We developed these scales using usually about 4 or 5 items related to these kind of things. For time management, it'd be like meeting deadlines, teamwork, respecting each other, making sure everybody's heard, things like this. And what's pretty evident right off the bat is that the treatment group across the board is more confident in these areas. Usually on average by about a point. This was a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being low confidence, 10 being very high confidence. I should also note these are all very internally consistent and had pretty good fits. In terms of the experiential learning survey, it's sort of more of the same story. So the experiential learning survey again comes from, and we used it before we actually done the experiment to get an idea of expectations. Like for instance, with relevance, how relevant do the students think that the curriculum that they're going to learn is going to be, useful to them in terms of their interests and in terms of their future. So for the control group, it was just asking about their semester. Whereas for the treatment group, the experiential learning program, it is directly related to the experiential learning program. How relevant is that going to be? How useful? And somewhat not surprisingly, the control group scored lower, but this could be argued that their semesters are typically not going to be as potentially interesting because the experiential learning program got selected for this program. They're going to be in this special program working with the stakeholders. So that might, it makes sense that they might sort of carry higher expectations of how useful and relevant this semester is going to be for their learning. Okay, so the propensity scores, right? We looked at everything in terms of the baseline comparisons. So one of the things that was pretty evident, as you can see here, we had a lot of treatment group participants who had very low propensity scores. These were people who tended to, particularly in the hard skills, be far less experienced compared to the compared to the experiential group. So we did one-to-one matching using random forest propensity score matching procedures. And as we can see from the adjusted sample, much more improved. We very much grabbed the students. If you actually look at the unadjusted sample, you can see on that high end a very similar distribution on the right side of it to what we actually ended up with. We grabbed the most similar students. Okay, and so then in terms of the sort of post propensity score matching, we see far better comparison between groups. Like in general, the control group is just across the board more experienced. They all have statistical method backgrounds, which some of the original control groups didn't. All of these students have some experience with statistics in some sense. Most of them have been on data analytics projects, processing data, but overall, these are far more comparable than they were before. And then, yeah, this is sort of the same story. If you recall before, all of the control group, which were the orange, were like a point less, and now they're practically on top of each other. They're virtually identical at this point in terms of their confidence in soft skills, in terms of their ability to present, work in teams, manage time management. So yeah, they're very similar now, which is great. And yeah, similar again. Still, we have treatment group is a little bit more on average, which again makes sense. They're going to be in this program, this experiential learning program, so might be influencing why they have higher expectations. But we have a control group that has similar expectations for sort of how useful, how relevant the material they're going to learn is going to be this semester. Okay, so for our next steps, big ones are the three listed here at the fall semester. First off, we have to make sure that each of the experiential learning program folks actually complete online modules. So that's a part of the experiential learning program curriculum. And then the second part is we need to make sure that we can actually retain these students in terms of the post-survey. Another key thing is going to be interviews. Interviews are going to be incredibly important in terms of understanding the actual experiences of these students. For spring semester, Nicole mentioned this, it's basically what we learned from this semester, and let's just keep doing it. Plan is to get more students, more than 25 in the treatment and more than 100 in the control, but the plan is just to repeat the data collection process. And then, yeah, summer is going to be the analysis writing steps, which should be fun. Thank you so much. Any questions?